There's a cat over here. There's a cat over there. And the wrong one died. And the wrong one died.
Welcome to The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. I'm your host, Mike Abrams, and today we have another amazing guest. She starred as Jennyanydots in the 2016 Broadway revival of Cats. Welcome, Sarah M. Jenkins, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So I always love asking first your history with the musical. So how much did you know about Cats before you decided to take on the tap dancing mother of Jenny? Were you well aware? Did you do it as a production growing up? Did you see it as a kid? Like, where were you on the spectrum?
Yeah. Okay, so basically, I had never done a production before, but when I was a kid, I want to say I was probably 11 or 12, and I'm from San Diego, California, and the tour came through, and we went and saw it at the Civic, and I remember sitting there watching it as this, like, probably between 10 and 12. And I had danced since I was, since I could walk. And I remember sitting there seeing it, and I didn't think, oh my God, this is amazing and life-changing. But what I did think was, oh, what I'm doing after school can be a career. So, I mean, somebody should have like stopped me then and been like, pay more attention to math. But no. So so instead, because I've always I'm the person that's not like, I love and I do it for the art. I feel like I'm the person that got bamboozled into musical theater thinking it would be a good living. And then by the time I was in it so deep, it was too late. So, but I definitely saw Cats and was like, oh my God, this is it. Like, I can do this. Like, all these singing and dancing lessons that I'm doing, this is what I can apply it to. And I had seen other shows, but for some reason, Cats was the one that got me. And I was like, yeah, I can do this. And then
how is that the one that got you? What else did you see?
I don't know. It must have been garbage. I don't know. But I will say, though, this is a two-parter. So then I started, it was from Southern California. So I started working a lot as a kid and a teenager. And I saw the tour when it came through again when I was about 19. And at that point, I had already done a full US tour. I did my first tour a month out of high school. I went back to California for a little bit, and the non-equity tour was coming back through the Civic again. So I went, yes, I'm gonna revisit this. And I brought my little sister, and we went back to the show, and we left at intermission.
Left? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I was like, so the thing that totally sparked my interest in saying, I'm going to do this for a career, I saw the show again, roughly 10 years later, and was like, what is this? And just got up and left. I was like, no, thank you. So it's pretty hilarious that the last time I saw Cats before I was on the stage truly was when I left at intermission.
I mean, you were done. You were done though. Like your main role is done by that point.
Totally. Oh my God, so funny. Yeah. So that was it. So
inspiration was as a kid. You couldn't even handle watching as a young adult.
I totally couldn't, and it was the one with the blow up set too. And I remember just being like, "Are they bouncing around an astro jump? What?
Wait, there's a blow up set."
Yeah, man. When the tour turned non-equity and Troika took it over back in whenever that was, and the tour went out for a million years. But the way that they downsized the set, it was essentially an astro jump. So they would plug it in these smaller theaters, and the entire set would just blow up. So it wasn't weight bearing. Like you couldn't, the trunk didn't open, and you couldn't climb all over the set. Yeah, it was nuts.
So is it basically the equivalent of like a bounce castle?
Yeah, 100%. And actually this last tour that went out of our revival used that same blow up set. So
how did I not know about this? This is fascinating.
Yeah. It's crazy. Because another fun fact that nobody really knows about, surprise, is I went out to the tour last summer for 1 week in an emergency situation. And I got there and was like, what is that noise? Because you walk backstage and all you hear is
blowing up the set every day.
What the fuck is that? Yeah, it's it runs the whole show. Like the noise.
So yeah, I mean,
you
need the
air
that, like, things going through. Yeah.
Electric guitar blasting because the audience would just hear an Astro jump. Anyway. But yeah, so that's kind of it. And then I auditioned for the original company of this revival. I initially went in for Rumpleteazer, which I had been told my whole life, like, you're a Rumpleteazer. That's what you do. You're short and you tumble and that's it. So I went in and like clearly didn't get it. And then once replacements started coming back up, I actually went back in for Rumpleteazer again. And there was only a few of us. And it was during that Andy, who I had known for a while, said, wait a minute, don't you tap? I was like, yes, that's actually what I prefer to do. And it was that moment that I knew, oh, okay, they know that Eloise is leaving. So I got slated into that. So I technically never auditioned for Jenny, really. I only auditioned for Rumpleteazer twice.
Just came in and got it. I still can't get over the fact that it was a bounce castle, basically, for a set.
Yeah.
How does that, I can't fathom how that works. So you can't climb on it. Like, there's a bunch of stuff in the productions that I only saw the 2006. I saw your production twice.
Yeah.
And I've seen the movie, old and new, and that's it.
Okay.
No other versions, no other times. I've now heard about a lot of them.
Yeah.
But I remember very vividly a lot of things happening, of like people jumping up around, and like, how do you build a Skimbleshanks train if you can't all be standing on the set?
Yeah, it's all just done on the floor.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this is a gift that keeps giving. I keep
truly,
learning more and more.
And nobody had warned me. So when I went out to the tour and I sat there and I watched it the first night, and I was so confused. I was like, why isn't Jenny in the car? And instead she just like walked out on a little ramp, and then like, instead of the trunk opening and rolling out and doing all that, she just like slid down. Listen, it worked. It was fine. Audiences loved it, but it took me by surprise.
Yeah, I guess when you're watching a tour, you're kind of dealing with whatever the nuances of that theater. Like, they're not all the same. They don't have the same space.
Yeah, exactly.
So you kind of expect that. But I don't. That's still fascinating to me. Okay, let's move forward. So you saw it as a right around the fringe of where I'm okay with parenting, bringing children. I don't think they should, like, too young. It's very too sexually aggressive of a show, in my opinion, for kids to go to. But teenager, I think you can kind of get away with. And so, but I can't get over now that you saw it and then came back and it was like, this is my life-changing moment. I've made my career decisions off of this show.
Yeah.
And you came back. Did you doubt yourself after, when you saw it the second time and left the intermission? Were you like, I made the wrong career path?
No, because I had already been working professionally in the biz. You know what I mean? So I was like, okay. All right, I'm doing the good shit now. Who needs that anymore? Fast forward then I end up doing the show.
Yeah. Okay. So what did you, when you get to replace Eloise, what did they tell you about Jenny?
All right. So it's interesting when you replace in a show, because you don't get that full, couple month experience of building things with the rest of the cast and doing all that. I had 4 weeks of rehearsal. Luckily, I was put into the show with basically 3 other people. So I was going into the show with a new Mistopheles, a new Baum, and a new Demeter. And luckily, Jenny and Baum and Demeter do a lot kind of similar track work. So it was great for us to all learn the show together, because we interacted so much. So that was good. And
they're your daughters.
They're not my daughters.
Are they not?
No.
No.
Also, here's the thing. Like, in the original production, Jenny was more of a matronly, character lady who did a couple shuffles. And in this version, she's like not old. You know what I mean? I'm like, she's spry and doing like this crazy ass shimmy tap dance. And I'm like, what? So it was good. So I'm sure like whatever whatever the idea was that Jenny was in this original iconic production, to me is not who Jenny was in this one, because it wasn't choreographed or set up the same way.
Mm-hmm.
So I took them more as that, they were my pals than my kids.
Interesting. It's such a different way of like, it always seems that Jenny's the mom that takes care of everything.
Yeah. I mean, what was fun is that, we were given bits of backstory and things to create, but I was also friends with people that were already in the show, which was super helpful to me. Like, Mamie is one of my dear, dear old friends. Like, we've known each other. We toured together. It was great. So I was super excited to be in the show with her. Tyler's an old friend of mine. Sarah Ford, like, I had real life relationships with all these people. So it was a lot easier to jump into the show with these pre-established relationships than somebody who didn't know anybody and was like, hi, I'm here dressed like as a cat. Who am I supposed to like? So that was cool.
Which is a fascinating thing to know, because I heard Sarah and Tyler said that as well. And there are some super fans out there that like, they're not happy if you're very clearly friends with a cat you're not supposed to be friends with that cat. Like there's some traditionalists that's like, no, you shouldn't be, you're supposed to not like them, or that's supposed to be your rival,
It's so funny.
Is fascinating to me.
It's so funny. Yeah. Cats fans are fans. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's different. It's amazing to be a part of that, to be a part of a show that has that kind of fan culture. But I mean, I'm not going to lie. Like, I opened the show as being one of the cats that goes through the audience. So I started in the basement of the Neil Simon, and the ones that started down in the basement were, so they'd call places, and most people would go to their sides of the stage. And then there was a group of maybe 5 or 6 of us that used to have to go all the way down underneath the theater and hang out in this dirty, like probably body-filled basement and wait till the audience went to their seats, and then would get released into the lobby downstairs and just get to hang out there until our entrance for the whole overture and stuff. And I mean, that group of people was Jenny and Tugger and Jelly and Bomb and Mungojerrie. I mean, basically it was all a group of us that were all friends. So we would just goof off and hang out down there. But so I had to enter through the audience, and going through the audience to enter in person is much different than starting the show on stage and being able to survey the audience. You know what I mean? Because It's dark and you start to sing and you're going through the aisle with my sole purpose being to scare children, first and foremost. Who can I find that looks like they're under 10 that I can try to make scream during this opening number? And then second, like, you're scoping out who is there. And sometimes people would come in full costume dressed up. And I would scream. Like, I would be terrified because I think I'm going to go up and scare the shit out of some kid right now. And then I turn around and there's like a 50-year-old man in a homemade monkey strap costume that then terrifies me so much that I have to like run away and continue the opening number. So it was always a treat.
This is again fascinating to me that like, one, we have to use a bounce castle for a set, but also there's no way in these theaters to get you to the entrance besides like going through the like crawl space below the theater. Like, how's that a thing? Like, there's no like side door? Like, how's that the only way to get you there?
Yeah. Well, cause I mean, these theaters are so old, you know what I mean? So you can't really go outside. So it's just crawling your way, walking down to the boiler room. Started the show in the boiler room.
Under the seats, come back out.
Yeah.
Did you have any, because again, that was the other thing, is I was not on the aisle when I saw it the first time. I was very glad I wasn't, because I would have been the person you scared and not been happy about it.
Oh, totally.
But did you ever have any experiences? I think Tyler was the one who mentioned he got punched by a kid. But did you have anything where you scared somebody and they weren't happy?
Not really. Not really. I feel we are very similar in I will never sit on the aisle seeing any show ever because I'm terrified of people like me. You know, like I know what I do when I'm in that position. And when I'm an audience member, I would be terrified to encounter me as a performer. So that being said, nothing nothing ever got too crazy or aggressive for me. I mean, there was a moment in the show. One of my favorite moments is after Tugger, because Jenny and Tugger have a real complicated relationship. Mm-hmm. And when I went into the show, Tyler and I got super excited. And there's a moment after his number where he would go down into the audience and take the photo, like the mm-hmm. Tugger photo. And you'd always kind of either sit in an empty seat or, grab somebody up from the audience. And Jenny's job was to run down there and kind of scold him and try to get people away from him and kind of have this little fight. Well, there were a couple weeks there where, I don't remember, maybe it was a few shows in a row where we just couldn't get any of the audience to interact with us. So we started putting on our own just 3-act play in the aisles. And we talked about it afterwards and went, I mean, we're going to get a note. Like, somebody's going to say something. Mike, nobody ever said anything. So the problem is when you have people like me and Tyler and you don't tell us not to do something, we're just going to not only keep doing it, but it's going to keep growing. It's going to keep growing. So like the last month of the show, we had a whole soap opera happening. We went down there, we got in fights, we made out, we got married. We would just get away. We got away with so much. And I think you can get away with so much in the show as long as you are, full out, because you're wearing a unitard with a painted face and like kind of anything goes.
Yeah, if you commit, then
yes, that's the thing. You can't not commit, but if you commit, you can pretty much find a way to justify anything in this show.
So with live theater too, it's like, I've seen it twice years ago. And so it's like the memory of me trying to kind of pull back is like, I don't think I would have caught that, but you doing it every day, you kind of piece it together. Now there is fans that have gone many times to see a lot, there's the junkyard that goes a lot, but even then I think like that's probably something that maybe they're lucky if they catch on, because you're not seeing 3 or 4 shows in a row. You're maybe catching it once or twice a week.
Yeah, for sure. And
it was memorable.
And that was also so fun because there were people that saw it enough that they would catch on to certain things like that. But for the most part, this show is just so visually stimulating that you could see it 10 times and watch something different every single time and completely miss things, which I think is something that's pretty cool about it.
It is. It's what makes it really an impressive and thing. It's the reason I can keep having these conversations over and over again, because like I learn something new almost every time, because there's just such different variations because it's run for so long, and there's people doing small tweaks here and there to this.
Yeah,
but since there is no story, there is no plot.
No, I'm trying to actually look up right now. I need to find it. I used to have a note on my phone that was my summary of Cats that I used to send to my friends that were coming to the show, when I would say, don't try to figure anything out. These are the A, B, C bullet points that you need to know. And I think you would get a kick out of it, but I'm trying to. I want
to hear yours, because then I can give you my version of it.
Find it.
Did you recommend to your friends to be intoxicated?
Always, but only to a certain degree. I said, this is a, it's a single edible or a 2-drink show. Not both.
What happens if they go off the cliff? Like, what's the worry if they go past that?
If you go past that, I mean, here's the thing. If you go past that and somebody in full cat face like sneaks up on you,
comes out. Yeah.
That's where we're going to a place that is dangerous, which I actually found it.
Let's hear your.
Do you want to hear this note was last touched? It says November 18th, 2017. This is what I would send to my friends. All right, I haven't read it. It says, this is all you need to know about Cats. 1, opening. What it means is, why are all these people in our junkyard? That's the entire summary of the opening number. Is us hanging out in our clan saying, why are all these people in our junkyard? Summed it up for you. 8 minutes, summed up. 2, naming of cats. Okay, fine. If you're going to stay, then we'll explain ourselves and the party that we're having, kind of.
Fair.
Number 3, Gumby Cat, the first contestant who could win and come back in one of my 9 lives. You should pick me because I tap dance, duh. 4, Tugger interrupts the contest because he thinks he's cool, but is actually just a jackass. Great. 5, Grisabella. When cats do drugs, we don't like them anymore.
So this is great so far.
Right? Would you concur? Okay, 6, Bustopher Jones, the next contestant. We like him because he's fat, and Jenny is apparently a chubby chaser. 7, Mungojerrie and Rumpleteazer. Troublemakers out there so that we can go get water and pee.
So they're just they're the break so the cat can get off stage.
They're one of the only times that all the other cats get to leave stage.
Yeah.
So on this note, it's true too when you think about it. That is the only time since the show started that anybody has a chance to pee. And also, if you're talking about an old Broadway theater, there's not like unlimited bathrooms. So sometimes you'd have to look at each other on stage and be like, who's going to pee today? And the 2 people that had to pee the worst could go and run and pee. There was time for 2 people to pee in the girls' dressing room during Mungojerrie and Rumpleteazer.
I love that you built that into your storyline. Is that like, look, this is behind the scenes of how this actually works.
Yeah.
This is our break.
Think about it too. This isn't a normal costume where you're just like, oh, let me tuck up my microphone and pee. Like, you have to run off stage, and 2 dressers were always waiting by the bathrooms. For the first 2 that came, you would just stand there and they would have to unsnap your entire unitard, pull it down, you'd run in, you'd be sweaty. So when you came back out, it took 2 people to try to put a wet unitard back on you in enough time to run around stage and re-enter for Old Deuteronomy. That's probably more information than you ever wanted. But yeah.
I mean, it makes sense though. That's the part like when you're going to get to the intermission, but I can't believe that Old Deuteronomy doesn't take his break and just sits up there.
Oh yeah, that's his like job. That's what's next. It says 8, Old Deuteronomy, the leader who picks the winner. Then we're at the Jellicle Ball, our big orgy party. That's it. That's the only explanation. Our big orgy party. Then I said 10, Act 2 starts with us all super sad because old dude is clearly mad at us for being mean to Grizz, but whatever. So that's what happened there. 11 is Gus. We were all meanies, so now we have to listen to the old man and pretend that we care about acting in his weird dog battle. Sure. Skimbleshanks. He does shit on trains. McCavity. He's rapey and scary and kidnaps old dude. Mistopheles, don't worry, he'll find him. He does magic lights and shit, and lots of turns. And then we're at 15, Grizz. Old heroin cat, but I guess she belts high enough that we all accept her. And then 16, she wins and flies away to pussy heaven. And I'm like, great, that bitch is gone, so guess that means I'm back to taking center stage. And that's Cats.
That is a great synopsis. You've nailed it. There's nothing else you need to know.
I mean, truly, though, everybody was like, oh, I get it now. Because then they go, what's it about? I'm like, there are 16 points. And then just kick back and enjoy the singing and dancing.
Yeah, my elevator pitch was always, it's the weirdest competition show you've ever seen with the cat being murdered at the end.
Totally.
That's it.
Like,
the orgy in the middle.
We're all very eager to die, but before one of us dies, we want to make sure we have that orgy.
Yeah, that is. And there's the introductions, the naming of the cats. It's like, and the show starts and it's like, coming up, here's what's happening.
And all these cats that don't actually exist on stage, but we're talking about them anyway.
Yeah, you name a bunch of names that don't matter.
Yeah, that don't matter.
They're just there for the orgy.
Totally.
Yeah, that's a very strong synopsis.
Thank you so much. It should be published.
Yeah, I mean, there's a chance. Like, it's now recorded, but you can publish it.
T.S. Eliot with just like the most beautiful prose, and then I sum it up to 16 points.
I've still summed it up that I watched a version of a weird, offbeat, a little like kinky erotic version of the X Factor.
Oh, it absolutely is. Yeah.
That's how I summed it.
Yeah.
With a judge,
sure.
With a couple, young characters performing, a couple old characters performing, the weird kind of like throwback to last season is the orgy of like, oh, here's kind of all the other people. Like that was it. And then one belter wins and we move on.
It's true. Oh my God. It's so funny.
And the only reason I knew that is because I saw Leona Lewis the first time. And I think that's the only reason I pieced that together. I don't think there's any other reason. I would have probably walked out just being like, happily enjoyed watching people sing and dance, not piecing any storyline, having no idea what I witnessed. But it was probably around your number or Tugger's number when I started to be like, it's just cat after cat after cat after cat. I'm like, it's a competition.
It's Star Search. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So that's my frame of reference. And that's how I've come up with all of my synopsis of it. No other real reason, which is why whenever I talk to people from your cast who give me very thoughtful, cerebral, like the redemption story. See, I'm glad you said that Grisabella was on heroin, because that's kind of what I thought.
Fully. Well, the only backstory, I mean, there were certainly backstories that we were given. And then as it happened, like they kept developing, which is why I think too, it's fun because it would be different based on who was on stage that night too. You know what I mean? Like if somebody was on for a certain cat, but you had a relationship with that actual person, or the way that person was in that role could be totally different from the way that I interacted with a bum on a different night.
Yeah. And it's 40 years of doing this. Like there's different versions of like different cats' names. They've replaced some, they've changed some. Tugger was a rapping street cat one time in London.
Oh, yes, I heard about that.
Yeah, like there's a lot to it. There's a Gilbert, that was my favorite I found in Japan.
Who knew?
It's like a samurai cat, essentially. It seems like a little culturally insensitive, but it was, when I read about it, there was a scene that I don't think existed in the US at all that they added to a production overseas.
All right. Well, there was that. And again, people, like I said, the purists that love the show and that did the original version, I think have such strong feelings about it. But as somebody that was like, this is fun dancing and singing and I get to be with my friends and like the revival, I think it's great and wonderful, but I don't have that same, like, this is it. This is the story and this is the only way. I'm like, make it up as you go.
Yeah, you read your points. That's very obvious that was, but you had it very well summarized.
Thank you. But that being said, within that, I feel like it can either be a performer's dream or nightmare. Like, I feel like you have to really love improv and kind of flying by the seat of your pants within limitations to really enjoy that show to the fullest. So, I mean, when I get to spend half my show running around the stage with, Tugger or Tyler or Jelly or any of these people, and they're quintessential yes-anders, you can just have a different show every single night, which keeps it entertaining for us. But I feel like that also can contribute to why people come back and see the show so many times.
Definitely. Yeah. It was your dream as a 10-year-old and your nightmare as a 19-year-old.
It was. I just didn't realize that it would involve, rolling out of a trunk in a fat suit. And here we are.
And then a costume change.
Yeah.
So I remember when I saw, because I saw you and Eloise because of the timing.
Gotcha.
The part, your number, the first time I was just like, I was still, it was too early in the show for me to be, I was completely dumbstruck at that point still. But when I saw it the second time, I'm sitting here going, oh yeah, this is the part where I like the costume change and I love the tap dancing number, but I'm like, oh, this is the part where it's going to be like rats and cockroaches again. It's going to weird me out because it's like my New York nightmare. It's like moving from the Midwest. My biggest nightmare in New York were having a rat or a cockroach in my apartment. And it was like, hey, we're going to now have them as human adults on stage tap dancing.
I mean, at least in this revival, that section was very, very truncated. I believe in the original, there were a lot more dancing cockroaches and such. And I think 3 of them just came out and did 2 8 counts while I did a costume change. And then they were like, let's get out of this.
Yeah, but watching the 1998 movie too, it's like there's a whole line of them. It's like 10.
Oh yeah, that shit's terrifying.
And then the new movie was even more terrifying.
I don't know if I have the strength to talk about that.
I don't really want to talk about it, but that part, like, again, was a lot.
I was like, why is she eating them?
Yeah, it is.
And then she unzipped her skin.
Well, that was the costume change. I at least thought like, oh, okay, I get this is the costume change they're trying to mimic.
But did that have to be that terrifying?
I mean, that was.
It went for it. Yeah. It was a treat. The whole thing was such a treat.
So my last Jennyanydots question for you, and then we'll get into some rapid fire and my final question. But do you think your character is the laziest character or literally running the show behind the scenes?
I think she is pretty much running the show. I mean, she's lazy. I feel like she just has the opposite hours, right? So she sleeps all day. I called her the bodega cat. I felt like she was a total bodega cat that laid around that bodega all day. And then when they closed up shop for the night, she was like, all right, time to get shit done. But she did kind of keep everybody in line. And the only backstory, like solid backstory that Mamie and I had talked about is to kind of justify the fact that like me as Jenny and Eloise as Jenny, like we're not an older matronly motherly like person. Like we're like running around and spry and trying to figure that out. So what we kind of figured out was that Grizz and Jenny were kind of peers, and when Grizz took off, I don't think they were my kids. I think that I kind of got stuck raising all of Grizz's illegitimate children.
So,
and
yeah,
like
I
kind of got stuck cleaning up her shit. You know what I mean? Like she went off, she did her thing. And I was like, cause a lot of the interaction I had in the show was with her. Whenever she would show up, Jenny was the first one that would run up and get in her face and be like, fuck you, get out of here.
Yeah.
So we had to justify like, why am I running out of this crowd, getting up in your face and hissing at you and trying to get you away from here. So that worked for us to think that, you know, we were friends and she just left me with the mess to clean up.
So where do you think she went? You said heroin addicted. Like, where do you think she went?
Oh yeah. I think she was like a druggy prostitute.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
I've gotten some not,
you know, she was like she was a feral cat. She went out, she had the kids. She did the drugs. She took off. She was an addict. She left Jenny to clean up her mess. And that's why Jenny's like, get the fuck out of here.
And then you're going to reward her with a win at the end.
Yeah. Yeah. To which here's what I say. If this reward is based on life merits, Gus should have won.
That's the obvious choice.
That's the obvious choice. Like, bless his heart. Gus is on his last legs. That bitch ain't being reborn again. He's either like turning to dust or he's, you know, getting his ninth life. But if it's a talent show, I mean, she belted the highest. And Jenny's like, I mean, whatever. I'll be back next year when that bitch is gone and I'll probably win then. You know what I mean? Like, Jenny's got a lot of lives left ahead of her. Tugger's got a lot of lives left to him. You know, Grizz belted the highest.
If America's voting as if it's a competition show, do you think she gets the win?
She does, because I think she's in the sweet spot at the end.
So you think that they're going to play up the redemption story? Moms at home are going to vote for her because she's, you know, found her way and is now 100%. Taking care of her children.
And we all know that it's about placement, right? It's about placement when you get to these things.
Yep.
You want to have a strong opener, which is Jenny. Then you want to have a strong finish. And what's the last thing in people's minds when they pick up their phones to vote? The last thing that they saw. You put the high belter at the end. So like, I can't fault her for winning because we were all tired. We had performed 2.5 hours ago. Nobody remembers Jenny's tap dance from 2.5 hours ago. You're going to vote for the, you know, bitch that scrolted to the back of the house.
That's fair. That is the redemption story argument is for her. I still think you combine Tugger and Mistopheles.
So they can go live in gay kitty heaven together.
Together. Bert and Ernie up to the Heaviside Layer. It's a joint competition. You know, if it's a competition show like the X Factor, they're gonna always take some solos and make them a group. It's how we got One Direction, how we got Fifth Harmony. That's my vote.
It's true.
That's
but is the Heaviside Layer an actual place? Because I used to think that it was, you know, it's code for you get your next life. Like we say you get reborn into the next Jellicle life. So if you take Misto and Tugger, who's to say that they're going to be reborn back together? Like that could be the end of the romance.
That's true. That is very true. And there is the argument that it's actually just a place in the Winter Garden Theater in the attic, essentially.
Like that if we go up there, there's just going to be
There's a place.
a party happening.
Yeah. That is one of the other arguments. Okay, so you're team Gus.
I'm team, if we're talking about real, the cat's life and what they've contributed, and if we want to give somebody another chance to be reborn, it should totally be Gus. If we're going on, American Idol style, who belted the highest and who's the freshest in your mind, like the audience is going to vote for Grizz, even though it probably shouldn't be her. But to be fair, we used to play, we used to play a game at the end of the show called, because we were so tired, called Can I Hold My Breath for as long as Mamie holds the note?
No.
No, the answer is no. Like, we were so dead at that point. I remember sitting on that car trunk with, Skimble, whoever was playing Skimble that night. And we'd turn up stage and be like, oh my God, here we go. And we were so out of breath that we're like, no, give up. Can't do it. I can't even sit here and hold my breath for as long as she's sustaining this phrase.
Yeah, it is incredibly impressive. And it was fun to talk to her about, just in general, about her take on the show, because it was the first Grisabella I got to kind of argue with. But then I got to, I did get to see her the second time I performed, or I went to see the performance, and it was just like incredible to watch her do that. And then to think, like, I also love that most people know of that for the people that didn't get a chance to go see her because of the Macy's Day Parade.
Absolutely. I'm so glad that clip can just live on forever, because I feel like it's the Grizz standard that everyone will be held to. You know what I mean? You're like, well, do you sound like that? Which
is the fact that it's also the Macy's Day Parade is like kind of hilarious, because it's such a different experience. And then it's also like, oh, it's cats, just some cats roaming around here.
Just cats walking around 34th Street. No big deal. Yeah. Which ironically is pretty much what 34th Street looks like now. Yeah. That's so sad. Just a junkyard. Yeah.
So we've covered my main question. So let's do some rapid fire.
Great.
So if you weren't Jennyanydots, and who would you want to play? What other cat would you want to play?
Oh, I think I'd like to play Rumpleteazer. Just because I spent my whole life being told that that's what I should do, and then never got the chance to do it. I think it's fun.
It's it'd be
super fun.
That is the main thing I remember from the first time I saw it, is I could not get that song stuck out of my head.
Yeah, it's wild.
I was singing it the whole time out of the theater. I saw a matinee, so I'm like on my way home, like thinking about that, and that was it. And then it's as I got home, I'm like, what did I just watch? And that's when it all kind of like hit me.
And then you continued asking yourself that question.
Yeah, and I saw matinee, so I didn't drink before.
Oh no!
I drank after, and that was when it was like, okay, I got it. I'm aware. And then I saw it exactly a year later, because I had a friend that came in from out of town and had never seen it and knew my argument of it and was like, we're going. And so we went and bought the cheapest of cheap tickets, sat up way up high, and watched the second time around.
Awesome. I do feel like I have a two-part answer for that, though. I feel like that was a very logical response that I gave you. I gave you a very performer response, which is like, what is the other thing I could logically do in the show? Which is that if I had a fantasy role, it would be Bomb Ballerina.
So why is that a fantasy role? Not in your...
Just because I'm like 5'2" and look like an eternal child, and I will never in my entire life be the tall, sexy girl. It's not like I will never in my entire life look like a woman that should play Bomb. Like it's that like leggy, rockette, sexy, tall woman, and that's not in my cards. Yeah. But I think it would be damn fun.
So I've asked a lot of people this question, and I have wondered if everyone's mind immediately goes to what you said, what you could do. Like, this would be the one I'd be good at, or another like role I could do, versus like for me, who can't do any of them. I'm like, which one is super fun to be? It's more of just like, I don't think about it at all, because I can't sing, I can't dance. I couldn't.
Of course.
Stuff.
What would your choice be?
Oh, I think it would be super fun. Like for me, again, because I can't do all of it, to do Bustifer.
Oh,
But
fully.
then you can't. But then I learned like then you got to be Peter and Gus, and I don't think like I would not be a good Gus. So I don't know.
You just want to like show up and be Bustifer and then peace out.
Yeah, just sit there with their like spoon pimp cane and walk around just jovial and then leave. Old Deuteronomy is an interesting one too, but then when I saw that he sat on stage during intermission, I'm like, nope, no way.
That suit is hot too.
Well, it's the same thing you mentioned.
Ice
Like
pack vests. Yeah.
like when you go to the bathroom, when you get your break, get your water. I'm like, I guess he's not on at all times, but I was like, I feel like intermission is the time when the crowd does that. I was like, how's he giving this up?
Yeah, but then again, he does that into the top of Act 2, and then he gets to take another break. You know what I mean? So he does. I feel like he gets kind of like Grizz. Like he gets a big chunk. And he has giant breaks on the other side, as opposed to the rest of the cats that are on stage from the downbeat to the finale and then only have intermission and like Mungo to run pee.
Yeah. Well, and that's the part, like if I was my like first time thinking about it, I was like, it was Mungojerrie because I thought that whole number, but I couldn't do any of that. Like singing anything.
In fantasy land, though, you can do anything.
So that's good for the second question. What is your favorite song? And I'm going to eliminate your own song. So take yours out of it.
That's fine. Eliminate my song. My favorite song? Oh, it has to be McCavity.
That's mine too. And it was Mungojerrie and Rumpleteazer until I started researching all this stuff and I started listening to these more frequently. And I'm like, oh, this is by far the best song. Is McCavity.
McCavity? Oh, it's so good. It's so good. It's like, it's sexy. It's rich. I loved it. That was also one of the ones that I didn't have to, a number that I didn't have to dance. I only got to sing. So I kind of lived for that too.
Yeah, it's a song that's now most stuck in my head most frequently.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I also don't love, this is going to sound terrible, I don't love to listen to musical theater. Like I like to do it a lot. I love to sing and dance and be on stage, but I'm never going to sit at home and say, you know what? I think I'm going to listen to some Andrew Lloyd Webber. Like not on your life. Never.
I'm definitely the same way.
Are you?
It's very clear I'm an outsider. I spend more time watching sports than I showed you like what's behind me. Like I spend more time watching the NBA and NHL playoffs than in golf than I do watching musical theater. But being in New York and being there, it's fun to go. I love going, but I never listened to a cast album before. After occasionally I listened to like one or two songs I've like loved out of it, but it's like I very rarely listen from start to finish. The only reason I've even done that now is it's my writing brain power. As like when I did the initial episodes where I was breaking down the characters, I would pull up the YouTube clip and watch the number. Like, and that was how I'd like start with it, which is the 1998 movie. They're just on YouTube. And so I would watch that number and then I'd be like, oh yeah, that kind of got stuck in my head. And then that was why like I started to learn so many songs. But if you ask me about things like the naming of the cast, the Joker Ball, any ones where it wasn't a character I broke down, I'm like, I don't know a lot about it. I couldn't tell you any of the words from it. Like I've listened to it probably 5 times in my life because I listened to the ones as like research.
Of course. Yeah, sure. Research. Yeah. I also realized when I was learning the show that something that I had completely forgotten was I had to memorize the naming of cats in the 8th grade.
Really?
Like for my English lit class. Yeah. I went to this like crazy Catholic private school and we used to have to do a lot of like speech memorization. And it wasn't until I was in rehearsal for the show that I was realizing that I already knew it. And it just had been retained in my brain because 8th grade Sarah had to stand up in front of the class and we all did one at a time, had to recite the naming of cats.
Most schools do like the Gettysburg Address and you did the name. We had to
do that too. I can still do all the presidents in order. Like we had to do all of that
we
stuff.
We did the states in order in a song. I still know the states alphabetically. But so I still can't sing it. I just know it. But that's okay. So all right, I'm on board. Okay, so we did favorite song. Who's your favorite and least favorite cat? Not actor. Take the actors out of it.
Just the cat. Favorite cat. I think Tugger's a really fun cat. It would be between between Tugger and Mistopheles. I love the magic element that Misto can just like show up and do a bunch of turns and make shit explode. I think that's super cool. I also think that Tugger is a really fun cat because he can get away with whatever he wants. And I think that's really fun.
Least favorite
cat. I mean, honestly, if I didn't play it, I think my least favorite would be Jenny. That's so terrible. That's so terrible. Well, I know, right? No, but I loved it and I had a lot of fun with it. But example, like in the original production, hands down would skip over that number. Hands down. I'm like, the cockroaches and the shuffle ball change, and it was like bland and not exciting. So that would be a pass. That would be a yay for the revival, a pass for the original.
That is okay.
That's a very controversial answer.
Might be some people that don't agree with you there. I said Peter.
Oh, I'm sure.
My answer is still Peter.
Who's Peter?
Peter is Christopher Gurr in the beginning.
Oh, yes. Okay.
The most worthless character ever created.
But like all these cats that we just say names and they don't actually exist. Like, do those even count?
I mean, they're in the orgy.
No, Peter's not in the orgy.
Peter's not in the orgy, but he's in the opening number.
Little old Gus is in the orgy. 100% is laying around in the back during the orgy. I know this to be true because I can picture glancing over and seeing him in this orgy on stage left as I was orgying on stage right. And I would orgy with, gay Uncle Skimble Shakes. So as we would be doing our thing, we had to orgy right in front of old Deuteronomy.
I wonder you stuck to calling it we're orgying the whole time here was the whole explanation.
Well, that totally it is. Specifically this section, though. That literally, it's like the sexy time dance, the orgy. And we're literally rolling around on the ground. Like there's nothing else to call it. And you'd be like, what are we doing? And I remember as we would, be slowly slithering around, sometimes like body rolling down the stage on each other, trying not to laugh. I'm sounding really professional right now. And we'd look up and old Dude would just be like sitting on the stairs, like watching us. And it's so funny. It's just so funny. And I know so many parts of this can be so serious and about redemption and whatnot. But in the end of the day, like I was getting paid hard, cold American dollars to wear a unitard and face paint and body roll around with my friends as another friend in a giant fat suit, like watched us slither around on each other, trying to make each other laugh. And that's what Cats is to me.
You got paid to be a cat.
Yeah. Like that shit's really funny, guys. It's funny.
Yeah. And that's what that's why this is a parody, is because I find it funny.
It is.
But I do think that
I know they don't. And that's why I was like, well, not here to make friends, but I get it. I also get when you see something and it moves you and you get what you need to out of it. And that's what art is. You know what I mean? It's subjective. Like somebody's going to sit and watch this and it's going to change their life because they see a story about redemption, and somebody else is going to sit in the audience and see it and go, oh shit, I can make money doing this. Okay. I guess I'll keep taking voice lessons. You know what I mean? And it's different to everyone, but I don't think there's a wrong answer.
Did you, when you walked out as a 19-year-old, were you just like, God, make that money, everyone on stage, go get paid?
I did. I call it do kick, get check. Sometimes there are shows that are so fulfilling to your soul, and sometimes you got to do kick and get a check.
Do kick? Is that
what
is
check.
it?
Yeah, do kick,
get check.
Get check.
That is the dancing, like theater version of that.
100%.
It's always been cash them checks.
Cash them checks. This is do a kick, get a check. But yeah, I think that is to say, but this was that whole experience of doing it was it was an artistic fulfillment, not because of, like I said earlier, not because of what the weight of the story that it brought to my own life, but simply because I had so much freedom on stage. And that's so rare, especially in modern day musical theater where you have these, associate directors and choreographers and people that are maintaining shows. And they're like, you were half an inch off of your number, and you have to say the line this way, and you have to keep everything so in line and in this box. That show was so much freedom. It was the hardest thing I've ever done and the most fun thing I've ever done all in the same package.
But it should be that way, because it's not like there are plenty of other shows where things have to kind of move in the right step at the right time for the story to progress. And it's like, if you miss the cue, something is like off on the story, but it's clear. You gave your 15-point version. I gave my 1 hour long X Factor version. Like everyone's got a very random way that they interpret the musical, so you can have a little bit more fun and have a little bit of that freedom, because there's just a couple core things that have to happen, and the rest is kind of like what it is.
Of course. And especially in this revival, I thought the sound and the lighting were so excellent. Like, it was such a visual feast to be able to sit there, and it directed your eye exactly where it was supposed to. So anything that wasn't, as long as you weren't distracting from where the audience was supposed to be paying attention, it was a lot of freedom. You know what I mean? So as long as you lived still within the world. But it was great to be able to not ever really know what the night had in store.
You just had to stay jellical.
You just had to stay jellical. And what does that even mean? It means whatever you want it to mean.
That's right. So what are you working on now? Are you still teaching tap? Like, what else is going on in your world?
Yeah, I'm trying to exist on the daily. It's a weird time. I've gotten very comfortable with, I don't know. I think a lot of people ask, what's coming up, or what are you going to do when this is over? What is this? What is this? And I think when it comes down to it, I don't know. Like, none of us really know. I had stuff that was supposed to start in the spring. I was going to do the new, the revised production of Thoroughly Modern Millie at Encore's that Jenny Tesori and they were coming back. They were rewriting all that stuff. Camille Brown was doing the choreography. It was a huge, heavy tap show. So I was super, super excited to do it. I think that it might, again, because they put so much work into redoing it, that it might resurface at some point. But yeah, I don't know. So until then, I'm teaching it's really fun. Once a week, I teach a beginning adult tap class in my apartment on Zoom, which I started doing when I was at my parents' in California, because so many people that aren't necessarily inherent dancers, or that didn't really ever specialize in tap, because that's a different specialty, that we discovered that people like to just make jingle noises with their feet, and tapping to classic jazz music makes people happy. And so no experience necessary. Put on a pair of Converse and tap around in your kitchen. And we do it once a week, and it's super fun. It makes people happy. And yeah, I teach privates, and just kind of walk my dogs. And that's about it.
So how can we find you on social media? That's the other big important question.
Oh my gosh, so important. To see all those photos of just my dogs. It is Sarah, SARAHM Jenkins at all the places. Instagram and Twitter. I don't really use that. I don't have a Facebook.
Easy enough.
Yeah.
Easy enough.
Because why? So
thank you so much for being on and being an amazing guest, and having you taught me something I didn't know about I'm going to keep calling it the Bounce Castle set.
Yeah. It's fascinating. Yeah.
And I loved your 15-point summary. Like, that's
thank you.
Such a better version than most of what I've heard. So thank you so much for being a great guest.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks everyone else for listening to this episode with Sarah M. Jenkins on The Wrong Cat Died, the podcast breakdown of the catastrophe. To follow along, you can subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or anywhere else you listen to podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at The Wrong Cat Died, or check out our website, thewrongcatdied.com.